This is the Microschool Minute, your weekly dose of microschooling news and events.
In this week's edition of the Microschool Minute,
Governor Ron DeSantis signed Senate Bill 182 on April 20th, 2026, creating a more uniform regulatory environment for small private schools and microschools. The law exempts private schools with 150 or fewer students from costly rezoning and land use change applications when operating in commercial or mixed-use zones, provided they meet fire safety standards. The reform also standardizes fire code applications, requiring officials to treat small educational facilities similarly to daycares or churches. Supporters argue these changes move away from a patchwork of local rules that previously forced small-scale educators into long, expensive bureaucratic battles to open in non-traditional buildings. Tennessee Republicans have passed House Bill 1881, rolling back state-mandated testing accountability for the state's original Education Savings Account program. Under the new law, participating private schools can now administer a nationally normed reference test of their choosing instead of the Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program. While private schools can still opt to offer the TCAP, many have long resisted the requirement. By aligning ESA accountability with the newer Education Freedom Scholarships, the state has streamlined requirements, though critics warn this will make it more difficult to compare the performance of voucher students against their public school peers. Governor Bill Lee signed legislation on May 7, 2026, expanding the Education Freedom Scholarship (EFS) program to accommodate 35,000 students for the 2026-27 school year. The program saw a massive 99% renewal rate after its first year, and over 300 schools are currently registered to participate in the landmark Universal Choice Initiative. Despite the expansion, demand has far outstripped available seats, with over 56,000 families applying. This has left more than 17,700 applicants on a waitlist, highlighting a significant trend of Tennessee families seeking alternative learning environments tailored to their children's unique needs. Newly released data from the Tennessee Department of Education provides the first glimpse into the financial backgrounds of applicants for the 35,000 reserved scholarship seats. Analysis shows that approximately 81% of new recipients met income eligibility requirements or qualified through specialized state programs. The data breaks down into several priority categories. Nearly 4,000 recipients come from households earning less than $59,478, while over 9,300 fall into a middle-tier income category capped at $178,434 for a family of four. These figures suggest that the program is increasingly utilized by families across various income levels rather than just the wealthiest. Kansas has joined 28 other states in participating in a new federal school voucher-style program launched by the Trump administration. Through Senate Bill 361, the state is facilitating a system where individuals and corporations receive tax credits for donations to scholarship-granting organizations, SGOs. However, local critics and lobbyists express concern that despite promises, the program may not cover many special education expenses due to federal IRS definitions of qualified education expenses. There are also concerns that the program primarily benefits private school students while diverting revenue that would otherwise support the state's general fund. A growing legal debate in Kansas centers on whether the new tax credit scholarships can actually cover special education services. While the program was promoted as a tool for students with disabilities to find better-fitting alternatives, legal analysts warn that Federal Internal Revenue Code definitions may not allow for the reimbursement of many specialized services. This could leave a gap for families who are hoping to use the funds to pay for tailored therapeutic or educational support outside of the public system. If these funds cannot be used for special education, many students with disabilities may find themselves forced to remain in public schools which are federally mandated to provide those services. Hundreds of advocates gathered at a rally in Baton Rouge to push for a doubling of the budget for LA Gator, Louisiana's private school voucher program. While Governor Jeff Landry's administration is calling for an expansion to meet high demand, State Senate President Cameron Henry has vowed to keep funding flat at its current levels. Senator Henry emphasizes that because the program is new, the state lacks sufficient performance data to justify an expansion. He insists on seeing baseline results from this spring's testing before committing more public funds, highlighting a growing legislative trend of demanding academic data before scaling alternative schooling programs. Arizona's Empowerment Scholarship Account program, currently serving over 100,000 students, faces two distinct ballot initiatives that could reshape its future. One initiative, led by teachers' unions, seeks to impose strict income limits, mandate state-standardized testing for private schools, and ban families from rolling over funds for future expenses. A second initiative, sponsored by some choice supporters, aims to protect the program by introducing government-approved testing and limiting the specific vendors and curricula families can use. Advocates like EdChoice warn that both measures could undermine the flexible, student-centered nature that has made Arizona's ESA the national gold standard for education freedom. Texas's first school choice program, the Texas Education Freedom Account, has launched with a record-shattering 274,183 applications in its first year. The state comptroller's office is currently notifying over 53,000 students of their status for the 2026-27 school year as part of a second round of awards. To manage the unprecedented volume, the state is using a third-party contractor, Odyssey, to handle the lottery and application process. Priority is given to students with qualifying disabilities and those from households at or below 500% of the federal poverty level, with a final confirmation deadline of July 15th for participating families. In a notable shift, 10 Alabama public school districts have registered to participate in the state's Choose Act Education Savings Account program. This allows eligible families to use ESA funds to pay tuition to attend public schools outside of their home districts, a feature of the law that went unused during its first year. Senate Education Budget Chairman Arthur Orr noted that the law was fundamentally intended to empower parents with options, including public-to-public choice. This trend indicates that ESAs are becoming a competitive tool for public districts to attract out-of-district students and the state funding that follows them. As the Arkansas Educational Freedom Account program expands to every student, it has become a personal decision for state leaders with school-aged children. A recent inquiry found that many top officials have had to decide for themselves whether to participate in the program they champion or criticize. With nearly $379 million approved for the 2026-27 school year, the program remains a lightning rod for controversy regarding parental choice and the role of religion in education. The personal participation of legislators highlight the ongoing debate over whether the program serves as a necessary alternative for families or an unfair shift in public funding. The Utah Fits All Scholarship Program continues to face massive demand, with over 16,000 families applying for only 10,000 available seats in its first year. Despite a legislative increase in funding for the second year, thousands of students are still being turned away due to a lack of resources. Meanwhile, the Utah Supreme Court is considering a lawsuit filed by a teachers' union that seeks to eliminate the program. Advocates argue that the program is constitutional because the funding follows the individual child to diverse learning environments, including microschools and tutoring, rather than simply defunding the public school system. A major cybersecurity breach disrupted schools and colleges nationwide on May 7, 2026, when the Canvas learning management system was hacked by a group known as Shiny Hunters. The breach, which occurred during finals week, forced Instructure to put the platform into maintenance mode, blocking access to exams and coursework. The hackers claimed unauthorized access to sensitive data and demanded a settlement by May 12th to prevent a leak. This incident underscores the infrastructure dependency of modern education and the vulnerability of sensitive student data stored on large-scale edtech platforms. Over a year after significant staff reductions, the U.S. Department of Education has announced new priorities centered on career readiness, literacy, and artificial intelligence. The agency is emphasizing the integration of AI in schools while leaving specific safety and privacy regulations to be decided at the state and local levels. The department is also distancing itself from past DEI initiatives, framing them as race and identity-based programs. Instead, the focus is shifting toward equitable literacy for low-income communities and aligning educational outcomes with industry and workforce needs. U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon recently testified before a Senate subcommittee to defend a fiscal year 2027 budget proposal that significantly reduces the department's size. The plan aims to cut the bloated bureaucracy by nearly half, including a reduction in staffing for the Office for Civil Rights from 530 to 271. McMahon argued that these cuts will deliver more decision-making power to state and local leaders. However, Democratic senators raised concerns that the reduction in force has already led to a backlog of 19,000 civil rights complaints, potentially weakening federal protections for students with disabilities. Last week, the Departments of Labor and Education both announced the first grants under a new interagency partnership that shifts several elementary and secondary education programs to the Labor Department. The two new grant competitions focus on advancing literacy in high-need areas and incentivizing teacher performance-based compensation. The partnership aims to fuse learning with vocation and industry to better prepare students for the modern economy. Critics, however, warn that fragmenting education responsibilities across multiple agencies could create inefficiencies. The Educational Choice for Children Act, a federal tax credit program funded by private donations, is set to launch on January 1, 2027. The program allows taxpayers to receive a dollar-for-dollar credit for donations to scholarship organizations, but it requires state governors to opt in for their students to be eligible. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has voiced strong opposition to the program, calling it a voucher scheme and threatening to end other non-public school support if his state participates. Advocates warn that if a governor refuses to opt in, taxpayers can still donate to fund scholarships for students in other states. The long-standing Pizza Hut Book It Summer reading program has opened registration for its 2026 season, offering free pizzas to students in grades pre-K to 6 who meet monthly reading goals. While open to accredited public, private, and charter schools, as well as individual homeschool families, the program has specific exclusions for some alternative settings. Unfortunately, the program's 2026 eligibility rules explicitly state that microschool programs at residential addresses are not eligible to participate. This exclusion presents a minor but symbolic hurdle for the growing number of home-based microschools that operate in residential neighborhoods.
If you know of a microschool or organization that deserves a shout-out, drop a line and let us know. Thank you for tuning in to the Microschool Minute, your weekly review of microschooling news and events. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support us, consider leaving a review. Until next week, happy microschooling.